Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I am delighted to dive into a conversation exploring the roads less traveled with none other than will.i.am, a creative innovator, entertainer, and tech entrepreneur. For those of us knee-deep in the industry, we can sometimes suffer from echo chambers and groupthink. So today's talk will be a breath of fresh air where we can examine red flags viewed from a particular vantage point. I ask that we all keep an open mind and explore the industry's uncharted territories, breaking out of Plato's allegory. Let's journey in this together. Before we begin, I would like to formally introduce my co-pilot for today, will.i.am.
Hello.
Who has a long list of accolades. But to summarize, he's a winner of 7 Grammy Awards, an Emmy Award, the World Economic Forum's Crystal Award, and an honorary fellowship of the Institution of Engineering and Technology. will.i.am frequently collaborates with global brands on campaigns, events, and technologies such as Beats Electronics, Gucci, and Salesforce. He is also the chairman and founder of Supermask, a smart mask and accessories line. Finally, I am Hind Seddiqi, a child of the luxury watch industry and the Director General of Dubai Watch Week, and your moderator for this morning. In the words of the Black Eyed Peas, let's get it started in here. So, Will, what defines a watch, in your opinion? Is it a wrist real estate, or is it a machine that tells time?
Obviously something that tells time, but something that you want to look at as well: design, art, craftsmanship. The best watches are the watches that you want to watch and mesmerize around. So it's the intersection of technology, like original technology, and timekeeping, art and design, craftsmanship and passion.
So do you wear watches, and when you buy watches, what do you look for?
Beauty first, because you want to already know that the craftsmanship on keeping time is there. It's been thousands of years. People have got that down to a science. But the beauty is another level. And that's what I look for, is uniqueness and the arts.
But what features do you think will define the next generation watch?
Well, that's a deep question, because it's timekeeping on a totally different level now. At first, a smartwatch was laughed at, by traditional watch collectors. But a smartwatch, it tells a whole lot of different types of time. It has the ability to measure all time, like what people are doing, where they're doing it, where they moved, when they moved, and what they're moving towards. And the future of watches is something that we really can't pinpoint now. I'm thinking like 10, 20 years from now, what is going to come? And AI plays a big part of that, timekeeping and predicting, suggestive. In order to have that, you need to make sure there's, people's privacy is safe.
So you speak from experience. Well, you've launched a watch, a digital watch, the Pulse. But what happened with the Pulse?
Okay, so it was 2012. I just left Intel. I used to sit on the board in a department called the Futurist Lab. at Intel from 2009 to 2011. And in 2012, I left and was audacious and had this big idea to put a watch on the wrist that was independent of a phone, non-tethered. So we got a Snapdragon Qualcomm chip, and that's a chip with cellular mobility, and we built on that. And we had it all on the wrist. And we thought that people wanted to part away from their phone. Like, why do you need to leave the house with the phone when it's on your wrist? Turns out, people didn't want that. People want their phone. And it's okay to try to bring a big idea to culture. Especially in a day and age where in society people are afraid to fail. They don't want to, bring an idea to life because they don't want egg in their face if it doesn't materialize. I don't believe in that. I believe in take as many swings as possible and try your hardest to materialize your ideas, because the last thing you want to do is have regrets like, I wish I did that. I learned so much making the dial. First was the pulse and the dial. And what I realized that what I can accomplish is putting teams together, solving a problem, and having big companies like AT&T and 3Mobile, validate your operating system on their platform. So it was a big achievement, but at the same time, we didn't accomplish what our true aspiration was, and that was to bring forth a new mobile communicative device.
So would you consider relaunching the Pulse or something similar in collaboration with a renowned watch brand?
I didn't think about that. It's a good idea, but I didn't think about that. Maybe later, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, you have the experience and you just said you're good at that. So there are a lot of watch brands that are trying to incorporate a little bit of digital elements into the watch. We launched something yesterday with Aramidas where they have a board that is linked to an app, basically. Something like that. So something to consider.
Yeah, so it was, audacious and ambitious. We were ambitious and audacious. We had a camera on it, natural language understanding to speak to the watch in a very conversational way. It was pretty advanced for 2012. This was before iPhone was non-tethered. The Apple Watch was non-tethered. And so for a kid from the ghetto that put together a cool team with my co-founder, with an awesome team out of Bangalore, India, we did something pretty cool. Yes. And it didn't happen, it didn't work, but it worked. There's two ways of looking at working. That is something that works, and a lot of times just because it works doesn't mean it's going to work in culture. And the only way to know that is to try. And figuring out the culture piece is a different type of, bird's eye view on how people move and what they're willing to, bring into their lives. And I learned there. I learned a lot there.
Yeah, that's great. So, well, theoretically, if there was another element to measure other than time, what would it be? Or how would you envision the future to do so?
That's an awesome question. So time is not just 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour, a day, a week, a month. That's no disrespect. That's kind of old school, because there's so much stuff you can do in time. And when it comes to people's ambitions and what they want to accomplish, how do you measure your path on accomplishing those things? And I want to measure ambition and materialization of ideas. And how do you do that? And how does machine learning and AI and timekeeping and, suggestive computing that is corralling all of my data to help me and help people achieve their dreams. And that is a different type of timepiece that I think is on the way. As awesome as our phone is, our phone doesn't do that. And that's where the watch industry can really, take the trust that we have with telling time, that they've earned throughout all the years, and really help people live the ultimate life, and take advantage of the fact that the phone doesn't do that yet. I can't tell the phone, I could tell the phone I need to get from here to there, and it gets me there. But I can't tell the phone I want to weigh a certain amount of weight by a certain point in time, because the phone is in my pocket, it's not taking my heart rate. And if it did, it needs a companion to do so. I need to put something on my wrist, which means it's a satellite to the phone. But what if the watch was able to do all those types of things and suggest and guide me to the aspirational point that I want to be, where I want to go? And that's not done yet. I can't tell my phone, hey, this is where I want my bank account. And it gets me there like it gets me to geographical points in life and in the world. So the phone is awesome. It's just, there's certain things a phone does not do. And if I was a watch brand, I would race to do that.
Okay. So what is the sweet spot between conserving the handmade art of craftsmanship and the digital matrix?
Say that again?
What is the sweet spot between conserving the handmade art of craftsmanship and the digital matrix?
One would think that they don't go together. And if you think about it, they don't go together. But they could, by fusing them, by having... That device doesn't exist yet. Like what watches used to be and what we have now, that there will always be a purpose for that. And what your phone is in the digital matrix, the form that it's in right now, is not the form it's going to be in 2030 to 2050. Mm-hmm. It's going to be something else. And there's some 11-year-old kid that is going to grow up, and they're going to bring forth a whole new type of device that merges the two. But it's not here yet. And that's some 2040 stuff.
Do you see that the watch industry is being too traditional in their products, manufacturing, or marketing?
Yes. But it's needed because you have to preserve that craftsmanship. Not everything should be made by machines. Mm-hmm. And so when you think of like the minutiae on watchmaking and just how precise it is, like, yo, humanity, what? We doing it still. Like, that's dope. Because not everything should be machine made. And it's beautiful to see like the craftsmanship that teams of people, so to preserve that and being traditional, and that's important. But open-minded to bring other folks into the fold, that's needed, and that's sustainability for a sector in society with watchmaking.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to that point, some say that the industry is heading towards its renaissance because the digital generation does actually appreciate items that do not have planned decay or obsolescence. Could this be a breath of fresh air for a world controlled by software updates and dead batteries? Like a watch is something you can pass over from generation to another, but your phone, you won't be able to do that with a phone.
Yeah, so what are you passing over? So if you break down, like, what is it like, somebody in their 70s and 80s, they're moving on to the next and they pass over that watch to their grandchild that's been in their life because it came from, his grandfather or his father. They're passing over human collaboration and craftsmanship and love and passion and, a skill set. It's the execution of perfection is what they're passing on. And planned obsolescence on the devices, like an 80-year-old, 90-year-old grandfather or grandmother is not going to say, okay, honey, this is my iPhone 9. This is for you. That's not happening because the iPhone 13 is out. Like, grandma, that's a 9. I want the 13. That's not, because it was planned for that. Yeah. A watch, the teams of people working together that's what you're passing on. Mm-hmm. And the machine is awesome. But I root humanity all the way.
Okay, so if you were to be the CEO of one of the global brands here at the BioWatch Week, what would you change? What's the first thing that you do to supercharge and appeal to the demographic of tech innovators?
My ideas probably won't. I wouldn't want that job.
But why?
Because then you're like, a CEO is on a traditional brand. That's a lot of responsibility to keep things as they were. I would rather be in the innovation squad that has the freedom to just dream up some new stuff. I don't want to be the CEO of a brand that's, has a steady pace, because you can't dream freely. Mm-hmm. You can't be audacious, and that's too much responsibility. I'd rather be in the innovation squad. You could do that's my passion. My passion is dream some new stuff up. Like, what, really? What's the budget? There's no budget. No budget. Oh shit. I like that. I like solving problems, putting teams together, and dreaming up new ideas. That's what I'm good at.
Are there any brands you admire for their legacy or what they're doing to adapt to the digital universe?
Out of all brands?
Yes.
Mercedes.
Okay.
I like how they're tackling the fusion between autonomy, electric vehicles, and luxury. I would bet on Mercedes. Mm-hmm. AMG, which is still a part of Mercedes, I like their teams. I can't wait to see what Virgil Abloh and Maybach release on December the 1st. And these types of collaborations, who would have thought? Virgil and Maybach with Gordon coming up with a new, bespoke idea on what electric vehicles and luxury brands are doing. I like that fusion. Another brand in luxury, I like Francois Pinault and the Karen Group. I like how big thinking he is. I like, but then I like Apple. Mm-hmm. All right, that's luxury. We don't know it. It isn't in your face luxury, but it is. And I like how they managed to make a device that the richest people in the world and the poorest people in the world share and have access to. That to me is beautiful. I like how they make look what they did with the watch. What? Who would have thought? Wow. And yeah, they're doing it pretty massive.
They sell more watches than in the entire watch industry together.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Do you think brands could benefit from more data and machine learning to create a super mechanical watch?
So say it again?
Do you think that the brands could benefit from using more data machine learning to create a super mechanical watch?
I think the brands could learn by having deliberate, innovative, futurist teams. Because machine learning is great, but maybe the imagination is greater. I still bet on humanity all the time, so the innovative squads, cross-disciplinary think tanks that are given the ability to dream up new types of things. I think when you're in one discipline, there's a ceiling there. By bringing other disciplines into the fold, that's why I salute Mercedes with the Virgil Abloh Maybach collab. These types of cross-disciplinary collaborations are going to be ultra important.
So yesterday, Will, when we were walking around and we were showing you the watches, you were fascinated by, even with the production of this village that we've built, you were fascinated by materials. And the materials that are used to create watches, and you were touching, the walls. How important is that for tech entrepreneurs to explore new materials? And do you think the watch industry, has knowledge that could be shared with the tech industry?
Materials and attention to detail is why we love to travel to the places that we aspire to go to. And if you go out and look into the world and you see the beautiful buildings and the materials they use, that was all filtered through the human mind. And maybe this is the last decade or two where the human mind as a filter is going to be needed, when it's all going to be machine filtered. So when I go around and see things, and I'm like, wow, whatever team this was that made sure that, concrete, texture, wall, or this watch, thank you so much for this. Hubble, this is beautiful. I was just blown away by the concrete infused material and the sand face. That was filtered through somebody's mind. The teams of people working together. That to me is like, a friend of mine said, you see trees and see leaves. I see trees. No, you see books. I see trees. You see honey. I see bees. When I see material, I see teams. When you see buildings, I see like teams and dreams. People manifested those dreams. And so it's okay I like to touch it, because I'm like, wow, I'm touching somebody's passion. And the teams of people that came together, people tossing and turning while they're sleeping, like to manifest that. And then we're in the room that was in somebody's mind. That to me is beautiful. And as the metaverse rises, if you think about that, we're synthesizing this experience. And although that could be exciting, it could be frightening. Mm-hmm. Because one thing we don't have as we're walking around physical reality is you don't have to worry about not being able to break out of your predicament because of an algorithmic bias when you're in the metaverse. So as long as we have this, I'm going to touch stuff, look at stuff, be at awe with design and teams of people working together. I love to travel and get inspired.
I think geeks of any industry or any product, they do the same thing, because with watches we do the same thing. When we see the watch, we feel the soul of the watchmaker, who created this piece. So it's a shared feeling, I'd say. So Will has a flight to catch. Unfortunately, we won't have a lot of time with him. But in closing, do you have any final thoughts, advice for the watch industry?
Yeah. So the industry that I came from is music. And music has been around for thousands of years, but the industry of music is really not that old. Before there was records and CDs and tapes and MP3s and WAV files, there was publishing music, sheet music. And that became, a reality because of the printing press. And before the printing press, people like wrote music down for folks to get together and play in an orchestra or play their instrument. So technology was at the core of our industry. If it wasn't for Edison and his gramophone, we wouldn't have a Grammy Awards. So that Grammy Award that we hold, that's somebody's idea to make a record player that played, music back by a needle on lacquer. And now that's an award. It's a relic. And a musician is now like a free agent for other tech companies' platforms. Because our industry forgot that we were technology. We forgot to innovate. The CD was enough for us. That was just greed. And the CD looked awesome. There was awesome CD players that our industry didn't make. Sanyo made them, Panasonic made them, Toshiba made them, Samsung made them. But our industry stopped making hardware because we forgot. We thought our industry was just based on art and beauty and people listening to music, but it always is technology. So watches were always technology. To stop innovating, to be able to tell all types of time, not just the time it takes the Earth to go around the sun, but what about the time it takes the Milky Way galaxy to complete? That means time should be also from, an interstellar space perspective. And that's technology, to get off the planet, to send satellites out there and, to research. That's technology at its core. So my advice to the watch industry is to innovate at all costs, to tell all types of time, not just solar time, but spatial time, how people live in spaces, emotional time, how, calculate how people feel, health time, help people live healthier lives, emotional intelligence, the relationship between people they love, time. And technology is a tool to do that. And the craftsmanship, the beauty, the work that you do to, make these awesome objects that will stand the test of time that we collect, I would take advantage of the greed that consumer electronics has and the hypno culture that we have where we buy and throw away, disposable, and make awesome technology to help people live better lives that you keep forever, to have and inspire people to have a better relationship with the data that they aggregate.
That's excellent, Will. I think we'll open the floor to questions now. Anyone has any questions for Will?
Will, how do you like Dubai? How do you like Dubai?
Oh, I love Dubai. Yeah, it's I think it's my third time here this year.
Okay, great. So I'm going to dive right in. I know you have a plane to catch. My question is about preservation and innovation. You do this with your music. You understand when it comes to innovation, you have to preserve certain principles. And what I mean by this, since the first song I heard from you guys, I was 6, I already knew you guys would be big because you preserved the heart of the music, but your beat was different. And I got that at 6 years old. So now I'm here standing in front of you listening to all this, and it's the first interview I'm ever hearing from you. I'm really impressed with what you're saying. And I want to try to start a discussion on the watch that might exist 20 to 30 years from now. The technology that exists for everything that you just said, that's brilliant, it's probably going to be quantum computing. So please, this is going to be this could be the only question for this session because it's where your heart is at as well, it's innovation. Think with me here. Would you suggest that the watch industry educate the younger generation on its principles and mechanics, or do you suggest for the whole industry to find that watch ASAP, what kind of watch that is, Or would you rather your kid to appreciate vintage watches? Because you're right, it doesn't exist yet, but 20 to 30 years, someone, a brand is gonna find that. And we don't know who it is yet, and that's an opportunity. So with that said, with your music and how you combine love, people from all over the world, the places you've been, and you put that into a beat, that's what makes the beat special. And you understand that when it comes to innovation. So another question that I have for you is, what principles in the watch industry, I know you'll probably say mechanics, but let's try to dig deeper here and try to innovate something and start a discussion. What 3 principles with regards to the watches do you think shouldn't change when it comes to digitizing everything for the next 2 to 3 years? Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. That was
I'm sorry,
pretty-
I'm in
pretty
blockchain.
thanks for listening to the music and seeing, our passion at an early age. What can the watch industry do to usher in and inspire the youth? One, inspire the youth, mentor the youth, speak to the youth, and empower the youth, and prepare the youth for this autonomous, robotic, machine-learned tomorrow. And take advantage of the fact that the tech companies aren't doing that in the way that you would think they should and would. And make sure they don't end up like, no disrespect to Fuji or Kodak, but think about taking a picture and capturing time. And what cameras were, now a camera is a computer company, and they take better pictures. And it's not over for the watch industry, right? They're still adored. People still collect. There's still giants in society. Rolex is still a Rolex. It's not going anywhere. But that being said, put some attention on preparing tomorrow and inspiring people to be audacious and supporting their audacious endeavors to add to timekeeping.
We have a question here.
Morning, Will. In this conversation about the intersection between the luxury watch space specifically and technology, moving that forward, the biggest hang-up that I see as we're having this conversation is hardware. Because, technology continues to advance, processing continues to advance. So how do you think we're going to reach a point in time where hardware is capable enough to live in a product that is multi-generational? Or is that going to be something that the industry is going to have to adapt to where, in traditional watchmaking, originality is key when it comes to something that's vintage? So how do you see that working? Or do you think we're going to cross a boundary at some point where that's no longer going to be a relevant concern?
What was the center of the question on the carbon part?
So basically, say 20, 30 years from now, a luxury watch brand like the people we see here build a luxury watch that incorporates technology in some way, in the way that you've been speaking of. Do you think we're going to get to a point where the processing side of the technology, like the chips and that kind of stuff, is going to be stable enough to last through those generations, so you still have that thing that you can hand down decades down the road, or a century down the road, or whatever the case may be?
Yes, and the reason why is these Gen Z kids, a kid that's like, what is a 9-year-old? Is that Gen Z?
Yes.
These Gen Z kids are freaking amazing. And what they're going to imagine and bring to society, we can't fathom what's about to happen. You just know something transformational is coming. Like, think about computing. Who would have thought that a computer would be in our pockets at all, moments of our waking lives? You wouldn't have thought that. You wouldn't have thought that people would stand there and just take pictures of themselves all day. You wouldn't have thought that you go eat, we're all hungry, and before you eat the food, somebody's taking pictures of it. And that's the first thing they think of before eating. Who would have thought that? A computer company created our new behavior. Who would have thought that I could just call a car and it comes? If you were African American in New York in 1980, you wouldn't have thought that would be a reality because cabs didn't stop for black people in New York. The government didn't fix that. You know, race relation folks didn't fix that. Uber changed that. Crazy, actually, right? What we had with race relations and people not trusting folks late at night, a company's idea, because of a mobile computing, changed that. Awesome when you look at it from that perspective. But these were all crazy ideas. Like our mothers and our fathers told us, don't get in cars with strangers. Don't hitchhike. Those are freaking products now. There was like Little Red Riding Hood, who was, you know, folklore and fairy tale of a little girl in the forest and going to somebody's cabin. That's freaking Airbnb now. Things that they told us not to do are products. Because some wild, imaginative idea to look at the world differently came about. So what is 2040 going to look like? Because I'm an optimist, it's going to look freaking awesome. Why? Because these 9-year-olds today, Gen Z, they're native. They're digitally native. And they know the beauty of watches. And they also know that they want to support brands that are kinder to society and the planet. And so I'm betting that these 9-year-olds, with a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of mentorship, and, you know, being there to support their ideas as they materialize them, are going to bring about things that we can't even imagine. And yeah, timekeeping has been here forever, like computing, but computers have changed the world. And the future of timekeeping on a machine learning AI perspective with quantum computing, which brand is that? Is that a cold computer company with business practices that make you question your privacy? Should we give it to those cats again? Nah, I don't think so. I think a new business plan that has people and their civil liberties and privacy in mind, and I think another company that we trust, that we've always trusted, should be at the helm of that. And what better company than, or industry, but timekeeping itself.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so we have a question here.
Hey, Will, how's it going?
Hey.
I got a question. Music has evolved from the past 100 years, from the time of Frank Sinatra to Michael Jackson, to now what it is today. Music was different 10 years ago. It's completely different right now. What do you think, how do you think music is going to evolve in the next 10, 20 years?
Oh, AI. There's going to be artists that you like that aren't people. That's going to make music for you based on your data. That's going to sing like Beyonce, dance like Michael Jackson, and they're not going to be real people at all. It's just going to be digital avatars with, you know, predictive machine learning, human synthesis that can synthesize timbres and sing and pull information from the internet and from your feed specifically and compose for you. I think that is more realistic than fairy tale and fantasy, because if you listen to the stuff that we all like, Is anybody really freaking singing awesome, awesome, awesome? Nope. Do we really like auto-tune in our songs? Yep. So what does that mean? That means like it's like a taste, acquired taste. I remember the first time I ever had red wine, I thought it was disgusting. But then you start to like it. It's the same thing with pop music. First when you hear it, you're like, this shit sucks. And then you start to like it. And no disrespect to the current state of music. It's just that when you compare it to, when you compare it to the greats, it's lacking. And thank God we have our Beyoncés. Thank God we have our Jennifer Hudsons and our Adeles. Thank God we have our, I like Drake a lot. Drake's dope. But the machine, wow, 2030, 2040. There's going to be some groups that you're going to say like, or singers that you're going to think, I've never heard a singer like that. And they're not going to be real people.
I think there's a question here, yeah.
Hello, Will. How are you?
Hello.
Thank you so much for your intervention. And I tend to differ. I differ on several levels. The first level, I'll just make a parenthesis about music. The way we have Beyoncé and the futuristic avatar, we still have Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, and you name it, and you still...
Yeah, that stuff is forever.
No. History always, we always have history to look back to and from which we differ. But that historical part will never change. This brings me to the watch industry. The watch industry is a millennial industry. Time has been discussed by artists, by designers, by the industry itself, by looking at precision. And I'm not quite sure, having followed many, many sessions, and in particular the sessions at Christie's, where people look at vintage and the way they revere vintage and the quality of watchmaking, I'm not quite sure any industry is interested in creating objects for the generation X, Y, Z, whatever generation you want to call. Moreover, the industry is about object of desire. It's not about selling. It is about selling, but it's about object of desire. This brings me to the place of a place like Dubai. Dubai is today what the Silk Road was historically, what the Spice Road was historically. It's a place of connectivity, and it's a place on intersectionality. And what's extraordinary is to have a Dubai Watch Week under the pandemic conditions and what's happening in the world nowadays. And this is what I'd like to preserve. Frankly, and I don't know about the industry, I think the industry is great, and it can maybe, bit by bit, make changes, but not necessarily. Perenity is more important. Time and perenity, in my view, is more important in trend and fashion.
Yeah. My point on the music part was Beethoven, Chopin, and our musical greats, they come from an era where there was funding, where they were taught in schools, and schools made sure that people learned the fundamentals of music. And that's not the case right now in society. Arts is being stripped out of our schools. That's the first thing they cut. And when you compare preparing people for tomorrow and their dreams and aspirations for the arts, compared to big companies and trillions of dollars that they have to advance machines, to be creative, it's unfortunate that the funding for human intelligence is outweighed for machine intelligence. The funding for human creativity, expansion, and collaboration is outweighed for machine creativity and collaborations to be able to, you know, pull data and design things for individuals and communities. It's just an unfortunate reality where we're going. That's the reason why I said the future of music, the things that we're going to like, maybe 70% is going to be machined, that sing like people, that play like Beethoven. I wish that wasn't the case. But as a musician and knowing the tools and how we make music, that's just the state of where we are. And everything that we is algorithmic based. You know, we're competing to be on these playlists, and the playlist is playlist placement is influencing how we write and what we write, the length of the song, the frequency of the songs in. That's just a state of business. And so the reason why I said that is so that the watch industry doesn't do what happened to my industry, right? We don't own Spotify. That's not our industry. We just make music for Spotify. The closest thing we had was Beats, headphones, our own hardware, but now that's Apple's. And so don't repeat music is a point of that.
Thank you, Will. So I don't think we know what will happen to the watch industry. We'll just have to wait and watch. But what we hope for is that it will remain authentic for generations to come. So thank you, Will, for
Thank you, guys.